Well, the big game this weekend in the English Premier League, it's the battle of the top two, a potential title decider, Manchester City taking on Liverpool. But what if you could only play 11 players in a combined 11 from the two sides? Well, to decide which 11 he would play in a combined City and Liverpool 11, we've decided to ask Ali Moreno. And first of all, before we get to anything, Ali, how difficult a decision was it to come up with 11 and to leave out some fantastic players from your starting 11?
Yeah, there were some tough decisions. And the reason they're tough decisions is because we're talking about elite talent in just about every position on the field. And yeah, it was difficult. It was tough. There were moments in which I was about to write the name down. I thought, I'm not sure about this one, but it's a good problem to have. Any manager in the world would want to have this problem. And so I took my position very seriously, and I put down the names that I thought would start for me.
Okay, a couple of things beforehand. One, it's injury permitting, so we'll decide. Ali can discuss when we get to our defenders if Ruben Dias would have featured, but he doesn't because he's injured. Before we even get to any of the players, I suppose the easiest task you had, Ali, was the formation of 4-3-3, because both teams kind of play that formation quite a lot.
Yeah, and I could have chosen to perhaps shift the formation a little bit so that I could shoehorn players that I thought should be on the field. But I said, no, you know what? Let's make this very much a 4-3-3. It is what both teams play. It is what they prefer. So that's what my team would prefer. I stuck to it. If Pep Guardiola thinks that's the way to go and Jurgen Klopp thinks that's the way to go, who am I to argue?
Who's your Brazilian goalkeeper?
Well, you know, I have a direct line to Tite down in South America. And clearly I went to him. And I got on that phone and I said, all right, Tite, what do you do when Ederson and Alisson show up? And he was very clear with his decisions in the past that he has preferred Alisson to Ederson. And I said, okay, you know what? I like that as well. And the reason I selected Alisson, not only because of my quote unquote conversation with Tite, it was more because of, I think Alisson, while with his speed is a no contest, it's all about Ederson all the time. I think that Alisson is able to come up with big saves in big moments in a more consistent basis than Ederson does. If I am going to look for something that separates both of them, I'm thinking that Alisson is the one that will come up with a big save instead of Ederson.
Now, in your back four, Ali, I think I'm assuming it was slightly easier to pick the two centre-backs, given that Ruben Dias is injured and isn't available for selection. So you've got Aymeric Laporte and Virgil van Dijk, and I don't think there's many that would disagree with that. But you've kind of got three fullbacks to try and fit into two positions: Trent Alexander-Arnold, Andrew Robertson, and Joao Cancelo. How did you come to the decision you came to?
Well, it was tough with Trent Alexander-Arnold because as much as I like his service and what he does in the attacking half and his ability to play balls over the top and how good he is with his service, defensively, man, I tell you, he's all over the place sometimes. And I just don't trust him defensively. When I say I'm thinking that this team is going to have most of the possession. This team is going to be more on the front foot. This is going to be an attacking group. So I say, you know what? I'm not going to concern myself with Trent Alexander-Arnold defensively because he is going to be more of an attacking option for me regardless. So I went for him instead of Kyle Walker because I just think that Alexander-Arnold is a better player offensively and his service is more consistent. In terms of the left-hand side, that was a tricky one. I thought that Joao Cancelo in my team could play the role that he does sometimes with Manchester City, where he tucks inside. He's always an option down the left, but he's always cutting to the inside. And I'm thinking, you know what? I need a guy that gives me width. I need a guy that gives me space because I have a lot of players in the midfield, a lot of players that are going to shift in and out of position. So I need them to have space to play. In order to have space to play, you have to have width. So you'll get the width on the right with Alexander-Arnold, and you're going to get the width down the left with Robertson. I don't need anybody else tucking inside for me. So I'll keep Robertson on the left-hand side, and Joao Cancelo can watch from the bench.
Not a bad player to bring on either. Now, midfield. If you're playing a three midfield, which you are, which Pep plays, which Jurgen Klopp plays as well, a combined 11 is Kevin De Bruyne +2. So who's your +2?
Fabinho preferred to Rodri. I think that Fabinho covers a lot more ground and he's better defensively. For as much as I like Rodri, I also think that Fabinho does have a better tendency in looking to play the ball forward, whereas Rodri is more of a sideways sort of guy. I like just the physical aspect of Fabinho and his presence in front of the back four. And the other option then became, well, is it Jordan Henderson? Am I looking somewhere in the midfield of Liverpool? And to be honest with you, I don't think it was much of a contest. I thought that the other midfielder should be a Manchester City player, and it was İlkay Gundogan who gets the call up. I need another guy who can possess the ball. I need another guy who can step into the 18-yard box that can be an option in a second line of attack. And I think Gundogan certainly is able to cover that space. Now, you have the balance of Fabinho, you have the passing ability of De Bruyne, and then you have the rhythm of passing with Gundogan. That's quite a midfield right there.
I like the way you're thinking. This just isn't a Yahoo selection, middle to front. Let's get all the goals. I think there might be a kind of a coach in your future. Perhaps you want to combine FC. If you get fed up working with Thomas and Nickel and Burley and Xhaka and the rest, this is sensible. Now, a front three, okay? Liverpool's front three was traditionally Salah, Mane, and Firmino. Luis Diaz has come in recently, Diogo Jota before that. City is a bit more flexible because Phil Foden's pushed further forward this season. Riyad Mahrez has got some great goal-scoring numbers. So has Raheem Sterling. Jack Grealish is in there as well. Gabriel Jesus is not going to be in your three, but he had to come into contention. Was it an easy decision for you to pick this front three?
It was an easy decision. The player that I thought certainly had to be on the field, and that's Mohamed Salah. And while at times I feel that he could be more consistent with his goal scoring, while I say that, I also look at a player that's scoring goals in bunches. So it's kind of a nonsense argument on my part, but I still think that he could be better than what he is. And that is just a sentiment that proves how good of a player Mohamed Salah is and how good and productive he has been for Liverpool. He was always going to be on that right-hand side, looking to cut inside to his left foot, always a threat and always a guy that was going to be part of this 11. Now, the other options were a little bit more complicated. Both of these teams don't really play with a number 9 per se. If you're going to mention Firmino, yeah, he's more of a link-up guy than an actual number 9. And whereas Manchester City, it's all about the false 9. So what was I going to do with that center striker position? Well, I wasn't going to go away from the identity of both clubs. And so I said, who do I think will give me the best option as a false 9, but also a guy that can threaten inside the 18-yard box and can get into little spaces, to play little balls, to link up, to be a decisive player in the final third and different than the other options that I had available. And the name was very clear to me. It was Phil Foden, because there is variety to his game that you don't see from the other guys. He can play the false 9. He can get into the 18-yard box. He is quick on the dribble. He also gets lost in between the center backs because of his movement. So he was going to be a guy that, while people are paying attention to Mohamed Salah and whoever else is playing on the other side, Foden is just going to kind of get lost in the shuffle, but he's going to find spaces where then he can play make for himself or he can play make for others. The left-hand side was even more complicated because the obvious option is Sadio Mane for me. And yet, Luis Diaz has been so good for Liverpool since joining. And I was tempted. You know, there's a South American connection there. I thought maybe I'm going to give a shout out to the Colombian guy. He has been outstanding for Liverpool, continues to be an important player, and not just another piece, but an important piece, a critical piece to their success. Has been so good for them. And while I try to convince myself that maybe Luis Diaz was the answer, I went to my original thought, and that is Sadio Mane, who continues to be critical to the success of Liverpool. So while Luis Diaz was an option, and I really thought about it and thought it long and hard, I thought, how about I just keep the two main guys of that attack for Liverpool on the field, and around them, I put in a little sprinkle of Phil Foden. That will make for a very dynamic front three.
Rather tasty. Now, what you weren't asked to do by our producers, but what I'm going to ask you to do, if you don't mind, this wonderful team needs a coach, and it can only be either Pep Guardiola or Jurgen Klopp. So who do you trust with the coach?
According to you, I thought you were going to pick me. I was feeling good about my coaching skill and ability.
You're the apprentice right now. You can learn from this man you're about to pick here before you take over.
See, now this is an interesting question. This is, and while I appreciate both of their styles, I have to take myself back to my days as a player. And I really think that I would have truly enjoyed playing for Jurgen Klopp. I would have learned a lot from Pep Guardiola, and it would have been a great experience. And everybody who's played for Pep Guardiola comes off thinking that they're a better player because of it. But there is something enjoyable to being around Jurgen Klopp that goes beyond the coach-player relationship. And I think that's a stronger bond than I would have with Pep Guardiola. So I'm going to go with Jurgen Klopp running my team.
I think, Ali, that is a question that there isn't a wrong answer. It doesn't matter what you pick. I think it's a fine answer. So that's your 11. Be coached by Jurgen Klopp. We're going to diversify a little bit to end this, and we're going to look ahead to the weekend. Everyone's back in their own team, wearing either light blue or wearing red and white. Who's going to win and who's going to get the better? Is it Pep Guardiola or Jurgen Klopp this weekend? What do you think?
Well, if you look at my selection of the team, one would suggest is very Liverpool heavy, plus the coach, plus the manager. He's the one making the decisions. So logically, then you think Liverpool is going to win this thing. Plus, I also think that Liverpool is carrying momentum going into this game much more so than Manchester City. And then you add the factor that it was a far more draining experience for Manchester City playing against Atletico Madrid than it was for Liverpool playing against Benfica. Everything points in the direction of Liverpool, except one thing. It's not going to be Liverpool. Manchester City find a way at home. They hang on, barely hang on to first place, and they do just enough to stay ahead of Liverpool.
What a game to look forward to. Full coverage right here at ESPN FC.
Thanks so much for watching ESPN on YouTube. And for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for premium content and live streaming, subscribe to ESPN Plus.